And we are live. I am recording this meeting. We're all set. Cool.
I guess usual preface from the standpoint of this is SIG Cluster Ops for September 7th. Yeah.
Thank you. That's exactly it.
So.
Yeah. So we don't have any firm agenda. The two things that I've been trying to schedule as speakers haven't come about yet. Both very interesting topics. So I'll keep working on it. All right, that's it for the preamble. And then Bitly has the notes, so we'll try and. So what was on your mind?
It's just one of the things we ran into, or we did intentionally over the last couple of weeks, was we set our root certificate inside of our API server to be intentionally low. So we actually forced ourselves to go through a root certificate role.
Okay.
And it's interesting because there is not necessarily a clean way to do that. And the real kicker of that comes in around the anything with a service account, because the service account gets constructed with the certificates, the CA bundle as a volume mounted in. It takes deleting and recreating the pods. So ideally it should be okay because everything should be, deletable.
Is this on the nodes that's causing that problem that you're doing that?
So I mean, we had it from the standpoint of like the certificate authority, which was signing the API server and any of the client certificates for use by the API server. Aged out.
So you didn't. So you did it as a specific pair. You didn't distribute the signature of your signing server to the clients.
The
shared root.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So we were using one CA bundle for anything kind of using the API server, either server authentication or client authentication. One bundle with one root certificate in it. But it's one of those, even if it's the interesting thing about the service account is that it's when the server certificate, the server authentication certificate authority needs to be updated. That's when you need to do the bundle recreate. The pod to recreate.
So it didn't care until. Wow. Okay, wait a minute. So you let the server API certificate expire, and everything did go to hell in a handbasket.
We rolled it before it expired.
Oh, okay.
It's just we set it intentionally low. We set it at 30 days. Mm-hmm. To see what a root certificate role looked like. So yeah, that was set intentionally, and we did capture it ahead of time. It's just the only way to update it is to roll the pods.
There was supposed to be a feature in Kubelet that would allow you to have multiple roots registered, and I don't know if it ever made it in. I was looking for it back, almost a year ago now, because for this exact problem, what we wanted to be able to do was have new and old certificates on the kubelet side, and then so before you rolled it, you would be able to have both available, and that would help you solve this problem.
I mean, from the way we were doing it, what gets the CA file that gets sent or that the kubelet uses. Is a bundle, so it can have multiple certificates inside of it. So as long as you're doing, as long as none of the certificates are conflicting, you're okay. But the service account CA bundle is created by the controller manager, and it's only created based on, even if you update the controller manager, all of the pods still have that bundle from when they were created, not from the update to the controller manager.
So so you didn't have any way to reach inside the pods and give them the new bundle?
Not cleanly. I mean, you can go in there and update the files on disk, but it's not a sustainable model.
Right. Could you just do the servers immutably and just tear the whole server down? I mean, it's like hitting it with a hammer, but
yeah,
if that was your model, you might never notice.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it goes through. It's like as long as you will take a disruption as you roll the certificates around.
Right.
But you can do it at any time. You can do it on your time as long as you don't go past your expirations, et cetera, et cetera.
Gotcha. So you're basically at that point you're in a 2-week. You said you give yourself enough time that you can roll it within the certificate expirations.
Yeah.
But and you found that when the certificates expired, it respected that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The dates work. Okay.
Yeah. It's one of if the connection is stood up, it won't kill the existing connection. But if for any reason it tries to reestablish, that's when it does its TLS reauthentication.
Okay. Yeah, you're smart to set it short because there's probably people who are going to find this problem out when they hit a year boundary.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a good practice. That's interesting.
Yeah, we rolled it into some certs that have like our root certs have, now have multi-year timeframes on them. But it was interesting as a starting point to see where it was.
Yeah, the problem is that if you have a multi-year cert and the system gets compromised, you
still have to have practice.
Sorry?
You still have to have practice, and it's hard to revoke root certificates.
Yeah. No, everything I've heard, the revocation process is not reliably implemented. So the only thing you can count on is time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you need to be in a situation where you can roll all your certs. But we did some work on this a year ago, and for this exact sort of scenario, it's like, all right, how fast can we roll a new certificate if we've decided a server's been compromised, without causing downtime? And the infrastructure wasn't all the way in place to do that, because you have to be able to have ideally, you want the kubelets to have two certs so they can listen to the old one and the new one while you're doing the rollout. So you roll out the kubelets first. I don't know anybody who's trying that. We only got so far and stopped. It's a good pattern. Cool. So my memory is not good enough. Did anybody take the certificate exam last week or 2 weeks ago? I saw a whole bunch of people posting their certificates for passing it. We were going to talk about that this week.
I did.
How'd it go?
It was kind of interesting because it says ahead of time that it's based on Ubuntu distributions.
Okay.
And it's very much, if you're not as familiar with Ubuntu tools, you definitely are at a bit of a handicap.
Okay.
But it went fine. I think it was actually a pretty good mix of administering items inside of Kubernetes as well as managing Kubernetes itself. So that was pretty good. There's a couple of trick questions. Well, I don't know if they're trick questions, and I don't know how much I'm supposed to speak about afterwards from the standpoint of.
That's fine. I don't give away the questions. Respect the NDA.
It's interesting. It's look, here's a problem with a cluster that. It's not just that, we're going in and we're making some component broken. It's we're going in and we're purposely doing something that's counter to the component. kind of
Okay.
interesting.
So yeah, so if you're testing if somebody's actually hit those use cases. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's the use case of, this might be a malignant use case, or sorry, malicious use case, which is a interesting testing pattern, to say the least.
I mean, that's what you want in an administrator's test, right? Somebody's as long as you've been trained on the best way to train, you want to be able to trip people up if they don't know. Yeah, that's awesome. I was excited to see that as a development stage in the community. It made a ton of sense. All right. All right, Ryan says he's not going to make it. Does anybody know of somebody who's doing the node admission pattern? The kubeadmin, right? Either the new kubeadmin stuff and or the bring nodes up using kubelet for kubelet configuration via API. That's all right. I'm gonna keep bugging Lockie, and I'll hold his head underwater. Either make him tell me, and then I'll do it, or I just need to spend the time actually doing it myself. And then then I can be my own speaker. I can give you a quick update from the Edge stuff if people are interested. The thing about all the Edge, I'm at the Edge OpenStack conference, and the interesting assumption is everything's going to be in container workloads anyway. And so, we saw demos of OpenStack running on Kubernetes, so Kubernetes underlay. We're talking about keeping resourcing light, all the things that you would expect from that perspective. Kube is the sort of the dominant delivery mechanism, it seems like. And I'm trying to figure out, this is a very OpenStack event, so there's a lot of people trying to put OpenStack in those environments, and so. And I'm listening to figure out what people are thinking. I think that there's a broad range, as you'd expect with this stuff. But, not a very coherent summary. The summary is Edge is hard, small, and the big. Oh, actually, there's one very concrete thing that is surfacing. If you're dealing with Edge, the number of clusters that you need to manage is astronomical. And something like Kubernetes, even that is not really a well thought out approach for how we're going to manage 1,000 Kubernetes clusters, all small distributed infrastructures. And so,
sorry,
yep.
Can you elaborate when you say if you're dealing with Edge?
So the idea is the Edge is a small 0 to 20 node infrastructure, usually in a remote location where it has to be completely standalone. So think about a cell tower, data center, coffee shop, retail outlet store. They're even talking about people's homes. So set-top box becomes a edge compute infrastructure. And so when you start looking at a data center, air quotes, data center infrastructure, the management of that is very different. So if you were going to say use Kubernetes as your cluster manager on that edge system, the tools to manage Kubernetes become very limiting from that perspective, right? It's not designed to be managed in thousands of units. There's just people aren't dealing with it yet, let alone deployed and upgraded and then having apps distributed. So there's a whole layer of how you manage those infrastructures, and they have to be location aware. All those things still apply, and network sensitive. If you don't want to stream big things back and forth on those networks. The whole point is to localize compute. It does seem like Kubernetes. I mean, this is one of those places where the only solution I've been hearing is Kubernetes and then OpenStack, of course, because it's OpenStack event.
I think one of the interesting things in that model is you're going to see the same application deployed. You know, I almost feel like a lot of these edge pops are going to be cookie cutters.
Totally.
With some variants of any packaging, you know, is going to aid in that application packaging.
I mean, that's what we see so far is they're highly homogeneous from actual what's deployed on them. The challenge has been that the infrastructure itself is really heterogeneous. So different sizes, different vendors, different network topologies, and that might not matter. I mean, Kube sort of abstracts all that, so you don't care. But I think there is desire though to be able to take like an edge telco edge data center and be able to push some application to it that's vendor that's actually multi-tenant vendor. So you could say, oh, I've got farm management, field data collection, and all of the data centers, all the farm close proximity data centers want to run that application, but the urban ones don't need it. And so you would actually be more selective. So I can see cases where there's actually more or less uniformity than you might think at first. This is what's being discussed at the conference, right? It's what does it really look like? What's the tech? Everybody has a different definition of edge. People have different requirements. Right, Verizon's got this NFV data center appliance that runs OpenStack on a single box in containers, but not with Kubernetes. So the whole gamut. And then AT&T is busy showing a Kubernetes deployment for edge that uses it installs OpenStack, which they need on Kubernetes, and then they've got management layers on management layers. Cool. Great. I'll include that as a report item in the next meeting, and I'll give you all an update. We're just getting started, so the keynotes are sort of light. Cool. All right, other agenda items? I'm not going to drag out the meeting without my speakers. So, cool. All right, everybody. Appreciate the time. I'll talk to you next week or 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and we'll drag Ryan in. Make sure I'll do the work to make sure he shows up. Has a discussion.
All right.
All right, everybody. See you.
Thanks.